Which coalition best serves the interests of citizens, investors, and visitors of the city of Joburg? Who will go into business with who? Political parties effectively have 2 weeks to finalize coalition talks before councils are dissolved. We spoke to an expert.
Symbolically, it is key for the ANC to be able to retain this to show that they are governing well. Now, the problem for the ANC is that where they've fallen out of government and had to form an opposition, they have not done well. The ANC, while the DA in the Western Cape and in Cape Town did lose some support this time around, the ANC barely gained from it. So the real concern for the ANC should be, broadly speaking, if they lose government, if they become an opposition party, their track record isn't great. We look at the last 5 years where they have in Tshwane and Johannesburg been a bit more resilient in terms of losing power, then regaining it, and then Tshwane losing it again. But the real challenge for the ANC in Johannesburg is it's this heartland of the struggle story. It's a very potential point of growth for South Africa. And if they lose the economic credibility here, then you can see it spill over to other places. So while that's important for the ANC on that front, it's also the same for the DA, because this is where they need to show they can be an alternative government. But the real interesting thing that I think we've seen from this election is that the DA wanted to sell itself as the lion that can take on the old lion and become the new dominant leader of the pack. I don't think that's true anymore. And the ANC wanted to show it is in power until Jesus comes, and that's also not true anymore.
The economic freedom fighters emerged as kingmakers during the 2016 elections. What role will the party play this time around?
Because a lot of people think that the EFF and the DA went into coalition. That's not quite true. They went into what we call a confidence and supply arrangement, where they supported the DA on electing mayors, passing budgets, but they weren't officially a party of government. So they got the credit for forming a government, but not the risk for actually governing. And the EFF's brand of politics is an odd one, because they almost do best when they are not in power. They are this powerful opposition voice. Whether you agree with them or not, they are potent in that role. So I've got a suspicion that they are risk averse. Despite them being quite pugnacious and out there, I think they understand that if they go into official government as a coalition partner for the ANC, they are going to start to have to take a lot of flack for what goes wrong in government. If they stay sort of in opposition but they play kingmaker, they've got this benefit of saying, we put you in power, but we ourselves don't need to take the risk of power. So I think we might be looking at a similar situation where we get an EFF not going into coalition, but going into a confidence and supply, so that they can get the benefit, but not the risk of government.
Interesting. Herman Mashaba's Action SA did relatively well in last week's polls, placing them in a unique position as one of the key parties in these coalition talks.
So Action SA performing well here makes sense. Very smart of them to focus on select areas where they know they will be doing well. But it is a new kid on the block, doing better than I expected, doing better than many other people expected. But what they've shown is that there is this hunger for an alternative, which isn't necessarily, the liberal or social democratic approach of the DA, nor the Christian conservative of the ACDP, nor the socialism and aggressive populism of the EFF, nor the ANC's brand of politics that has landed us here. There is this hunger for something else. The question is now, what are they going to do with those, 44 seats in this council that they got? They are very much kingmakers. It's up to them to play a big role, and it's a risky one.
Coalition governments are formed primarily for the benefit of residents. That's why Pretoria says voters should take ownership of the party they voted for.
Government should be about you, the voter. Because the negotiations currently going on as to who will dominate in that building behind us, the voters aren't really involved in that officially. Don't let them off the hook on social media, get their email addresses, get your local ward councillor's number and start getting involved. Because in South Africa for 100 years now, We've had this idea of something's gone wrong, what's the government going to do about it? Or what are politicians going to do about it? We've sort of outsourced politics to the politicians, and I think that's a dangerous setup.